Do you ride a bike?
Me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do you live in Haula?
Yeah.
I thought I saw you, but I wasn't sure, Dave. You got here fast.
Yep.
She was excited for class today.
So do you pass Max sometimes walking?
Yeah, I can ride it.
That's kind of you.
Usually we see who can make it here first, right?
Yeah, we race.
I cheated.
You gotta ride.
Yep. I hitchhiker. But it's like a gamble every time. I need to get my bike working. My bike. Really nice. When I had a shift here, and now that I can't really make sure it's not contraband and bring it to Hawaii, the TSA opened little boxes of all the small parts and just dumped it. And it's like I'm missing the small washers and rings and everything like you really need. I thought I had everything all together, but I'm missing a piece from the steering assembly. Don't mind the exercise.
I learned a new part about the Gideons Old Testament. You're familiar with that, where he started out with 30,000 men against 135,000 Midianites, and the Lord kept trimming it down. Do you remember that part? So, how many were in the final army that the Lord let go against the Midianites? 300. Okay. But here's the part of the story I didn't know before. There was like 30,000 that started out. Gideon told all the men who weren't selected for battle to leave their trumpets behind. So that's how they ended up having enough trumpets for all the 300 remainder survivor guys, is because of all the 30,000 that had been sent home, the Lord had them leave their trumpets. So that's a little twist to the story that I'd never heard of before. I hadn't picked up on that. Okay. So this one Christian writer, he makes the comment, he said, if you're facing big odds at work today, maybe God has already provided you unlikely but extraordinary resources for victory. So just like the Lord had a big supply of trumpets handy, maybe the Lord has already foreseen what you'll need in your lives and had those resources ready for you. Okay. Does this quote remind you of the idea about a month ago where we talked about this life is where we see whether we're going to be God's right-hand assistants in the worlds to come? Did that idea stick with anyone? Is that, you know, are we out to convert the masses? No. Okay. We're here to find those who really will seek the well-being of others before their own well-being. Okay. So when you find those kind of people, they're special. And I think that's what makes the social entrepreneurs stand out, is they have self-selected themselves to be different. Okay. But we are running late today, aren't we? Was there something on campus last night, a big party last night? Everyone slept in?
Isn't there like a break or something coming up? Yeah, there is.
Oh, people haven't left for Thanksgiving already, huh? Yeah.
Usually around this time when most students start getting like, they're waiting for the break.
All right. There's a new book out called Shine by a Christian entrepreneur. Here's his 5 principles. Remind me, what do you call something when you have a word for each one? acronym?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, serve others, honor God. This guy's name of his book his name is Beston, and his book is Shine. Honor God, improve continually. You know, when I was your age, I used to, have, a funny perspective on what I call the fifth of the principles and orders of the gospel. You know, the first four: faith, repentance, baptism, gift of the Holy Ghost. What would you say number 5 is? What? Yeah, endure to the end. When I was your age, I thought, piece of cake. Yeah. And now as I get older, I really see how enduring to the end is really one more hurdle. It's one more challenge to really hang in there. So that caught my eye when I saw his adverb there, continually. You know, most of us are more what? We improve. You know, we have our peaks and our valleys, and then we plateau for a while, and then we say, oh, I got to do better, and you buckle down and you kick it back into gear. You know? So to be able to do it continually takes some real difference. Navigate by values. I think that's an interesting way of putting it. Navigate by values. And then I'm not quite sure what he means by this. I'll probably have to read the book to be able to figure this one out. Earn recommendations. I sort of thought, that's the last one. Is that really a goal we should have? Well, I wonder what he means by that. Anybody want to take a guess of what that might mean? Max?
I think it's another way of him saying, be worthy of the praise people give you.
Be worthy of... Okay, I like that.
Let me use an example. For example, a lot of graduating high school students, at least in my high school, if you were so-and-so's son or related to so-and-so, it was very easy to get recommendations for all sorts of colleges because, oh, well, this is the guy who owns the town grocery store, this is your nephew, so why don't you write something great for him? And because like so-and-so was like, oh, well, sure, he was a good basketball player, we're all looking for that, so let's tell everybody he was good at math so they can get into this school. That happens. And so then like I have a lot of students in my high school who would go out to these big colleges and they would drop out about a year halfway through because they really hadn't earned the recommendations they'd received. They'd just gotten them by way of coasting.
Mm-hmm.
Easy to do that these days.
Was your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to basically say the same thing, just earn recommendations in the sense that be a person that somebody can give an honest evaluation, a good evaluation about you, in your employment, or even your association. Somebody that has reputation, integrity, respect, basically.
Is it a good end goal, though?
Yes, I think so.
Why?
Because if you have that in mind, it will help us to be in a better behavior when we deal with people. Because if, let's say I have something with Abigail, and I know that in the future someone can call her and ask her about me. If I have that in mind, it will help in a way to let me be fair in what I'm doing with you.
So you gain credibility and you can do better work if you have a certain level of recommendation and credibility?
Yeah, just like in my work at the library, we had a meeting last week and last month, and they were saying something like that employees call them from time to time and ask them how certain students who have worked for them in the past perform. So oftentimes they get such call to recommend the students somewhere that they don't even know. So they encourage us to be of better behavior, to follow our schedule and stuff like that, so that when they get this call, they will be able to say, yes, this was his performance.
Have any of you ever had that experience where you've been called by someone else's possible employer to ask what you thought of someone? Okay. It's a very tricky issue in the last 30 years with litigation. You know, what can or can't you say about a former employee? So be sure and get some guidance from your human resources department before you start talking about an employee or something you've had, because it can be very tricky. If you say the wrong thing, that employee can come back and sue you. So it's unfortunate because it's made figuring out if someone was a good employee at a private or at a previous employer, it's made it very difficult to find that out. You don't know whether the person you're talking to for the recommendation is telling you the truth or not. You know, oh yes, John was a fine person. Okay, wow, that really helps. You know, is he really telling me the truth or not, or is he just trying to avoid getting sued by John? All right. I think it's appropriate you prayed for us because, you know, today is Creativity Day and you've done your hair a different way than you normally do. So hair is a fun thing because you can be creative with it. You know, it's one of the few things in our body that really change. I mean, you know, do your arms and hands and legs change much? Do you have any opportunity to do anything with them? No, they're the same all the time. But our hair, we can do creative things with. So it's one thing that we get to do. All right. Well, I'm going to start off with the traditional greeting here in Hawaii. Good morning and aloha. Ha ha ha! I tricked you.
Hello.
All right. Now, what would you say if you're saying aloha to a Latin ballroom dance class?
Probably say hola.
Alo cha cha cha. Right? Huh? Yeah. Or how about aloha near the Christmas time? What? Alo ho ho ho. Okay. All right. How about if you were the Hawaiian Sherlock Holmes?
Hello, Watson.
Yeah. Keep going. Keep thinking. Okay, that's a good one too. See, there are multiple options. There's no wrong answer when you're asking an open-ended question like that. How about alo, aha? All right. So how many of you think of yourself as a creative person? Raise your hands high so we can see. How many of you think I'm not creative? Anyone in that mode? Okay, a few of you. All right. In general, I believe creative people come to entrepreneurship a little more easily than other careers because they're seekers, they're changers, they're improvers, all of which foster creativity. Some research has judged that we apparently reach our creative peak at about the time of kindergarten. And then by our mid-30s, we are operating at less than 5% of our potential. Think of, if you're only at a 5% creative potential, what if you could just get to the 10% creative potential? You'd be doubling your creative ability from 5% to 10%, a doubling. Think if we could get 10% of the population to go from 5% to 10%. Think of the impact that would have on society if we could have that small incremental improvement in creativity across the whole population. Now, some of the things we're going to be talking about this morning are taken from a book called A Whack on the Side of the Head. So it's a very good, fun, creative way of reading about creativity. So if you want to do more research on this topic, the book A Whack on the Side of the Head. And I didn't have my copy with me, so I'm going for my notes, so I can't even remember the guy's name, so I apologize to him in advance. There are many definitions of creativity. One, in general, is breaking down normal perceptions, looking at things afresh. Like the little boy who said, I don't want our family to buy a new minivan. I want our family to buy a new Mickey van. Before I read that, I had never associated Mickey and Minnie with minivan. You know, it just had never come together that way. And now, I don't think I'll ever stop hearing the word minivan without thinking of Mickey or Minnie. Okay? So that little boy broke down our normal perception of Minnie. You know, we think of M-I-N-I instead of M-I-N-N-I-E. Another general definition of creativity, I think, comes a little bit from those of you who've been to the temple and who have studied the creation story about how this earth was created. And our belief versus the general Christian world, their view of creating the earth out of nothing, ex nihilo I think is the Latin Greek word for it. And so we don't believe that the Lord took nothing to make this earth. We believe there was unorganized material, and he took that unorganized material and organized it. And that was what creation. Creation wasn't taking something from nothing, you know, magically making the earth appear. It was taking unorganized material and rearranging it in an organized fashion. So that is one way of looking at creativity, is not, you know, magically finding something, but it's rearranging what's already there. And one way of doing that is in combinations. Think of these, for example, how you've taken two things and put them together. How about wind surfing? You know, we had surfing for many years, and now we have wind surfers. How about clock radio? You know, used to have just clocks, and then years ago someone said, well, why don't we put them together? A clock and a radio together. How about, you know, TVs with built-in DVDs? Putting the two together. How about putting that together in a college setting? You know, sometimes at universities they're pretty rigid about their disciplines. They're divided into really rigidized, separate departments and compartmentalized areas of study. Think about these. How about having a department of agriculture and social work, or the department of physics and architecture, or the College of Criminology and Archaeology, or the School of Political Science and Physical Education. How about getting a BS in elementary education and astronomy, or a professor of music and mechanical engineering? So when you go outside your own little box and bring in something else, that method of combining is a form of creativity. I remember that's what I did with that grand prize I won when I took my article on, you know, that I had to do something on leadership, and I made it an analogy, the garden of global investing. So I combined gardening with international investing, and that caught the judge's imagination, and I won the $5,000 grand prize. But I want to suggest thinking creatively is not just for scientists and artists. I would suggest it's a very important tool for entrepreneurs. I think in the coming years, as more and more people think about entrepreneurship and try to start their own businesses and try to change the world, it will be very important to be creative and set yourself apart from everyone else. I mean, how many microfinance lenders are there now? Thousands. You know, you had, Undris and the Grameen Bank, you know, one of the big startup ones, but there have been Me Too players come along after that. So what's going to be the next revolution in social entrepreneurship beyond starting up a Me Too microfinance bank? Here's one for you. You've heard of Abraham Maslow, famous psychologist. He said this: a first-rate soup, S-O-U-P, is more creative than a second-class painting. A first-rate soup is more creative than a second-class painting. And I saw this ad in the newspaper and thought that sort of represented what he's thinking here. Look how pretty and creative that cake was for their Cool Whip ad. So you can be creative in your cake making. And then on the back, it was interesting, Rice Krispies, I don't think they have it anymore, but for a while they came out with Rice Krispie Treat cereal. So someone said, hey, people are always making Rice Krispies into Rice Krispie Treats. Why don't we pre-do that in a cereal format for them? So that was another way. So you can be creative in your cooking. In fact, someone has actually written a book on this point. One of the best ways to exercise your creativity, said the Dean of American Cuisine, is to force yourself to cook up something from your empty refrigerator. Who can't create a feast with a pound of shrimp except maybe a lousy cook? It's the real gourmet who can scratch together something wonderful from a few bones and a bell pepper. So here's a fellow who has found creativity in simple cooking and has written a book entitled What to Cook When You Think There's Nothing in the House to Eat. Okay? So I like that. Anyone can do well with a bunch of shrimp and fancy stuff. The real trick is doing it when you have limited resources. What can you do with that? I would suggest creation is a skill that is learned. Right? Ryan?
Oh, I was just going to say the author of that book that you were quoting, his name is Roger Von O. I can spell it for you. The last name is V-O-N.
Of the
Yeah, whack.
a whack on the side of the head. I knew it was a funny name. Roger, R-O-G. Is there a D in his name?
Yes, Roger. Just R-O-G-E-R. And then Von. And then O-E-C-H.
O-E-C-H. Okay. So he's the whack author. Am I spelling it right? A whack on the side of the head or to the side of the head?
A whack on the side of the head.
Okay. And he has several follow-on books now, right?
Yeah, it says he's the president of Creative Think, a California-based consulting firm.
Good. Thank you, Ryan. All right. Everyone close your eyes. All right. If you don't have one, think of one you've had in the past. Does your watch have numbers or Roman numerals? Numbers or Roman numerals on your watch face? All right. You can open your eyes. any of you have watches anymore in this day of iPods, how many still wear a watch? Okay. Did you get it right? Now, did you limit yourself to just what I suggested?
No.
I mean, my watch has neither numbers or Roman numerals. Doesn't have anything. So if I were to have just taken my verbal suggestion, I'd say, numbers, Roman numerals, which one is it? You know, oh, I can't remember. Well, see, I preconditioned you to just be limited by what I said. So one of the key things of creativity is not to limit yourself to any preconceived notions. What could you put on the hour points of your watches besides Roman numerals or numbers? Nothing.
On my watch it doesn't have anything.
What? Dots? What else?
Same diamonds.
Diamonds?
Lines.
Lines? I have lines.
Pictures.
Pictures?
Mickey Mouse stuff of Disney.
Okay. How about, have you seen the one for like sports people where you have footballs and baseballs? How about stars? I mean, you could put all sorts of things there. Have you seen watches where it runs backwards, counterclockwise? How about the ones that have moon calendars on them? Figures. How about, have you ever seen the rings that have a watch embedded in the ring? Or I think my favorite one is, you know, the golf ball that goes around. You know, that's the end of the minute hand. It's just a golf ball instead of, you know, a long sweeping arc of a line. So just in our watches, you can go beyond standard Roman numerals and numbers. You know, you don't have to be limited to that. Now, I would suggest life and the problems you'll face in the future come in two general varieties, structured and unstructured. Okay, so structured tasks or problems, it's like, you know, buying a bookcase at IKEA unassembled, and you have to follow the directions to assemble the bookcase. Okay, that's a structured problem. And then there are unstructured problems that are wide open, that there's no pre-given manual to know how to follow it. So like, how can I reduce our spending to get us to the point where we can send our son on a mission? You know, do you see the difference there? Follow the bookcase instructions to assemble the bookcase versus how do we pay for our son's mission? One's a structured problem, one's an unstructured problem. I would suggest that even structured problems can be looked at through creative lenses. Think about the bookcase example. What could you do differently with that bookcase you just bought at IKEA unassembled in the box? Instead of you assembling it and following the directions, what could you do?
Buy an assembled one.
I'm sorry?
Buy an assembled one.
Okay, buy an assembled one. Pay someone to assemble it for you.
Make your own shelf.
How about wait and put it together the night before Christmas for the person you're giving it to, if it's something like that? Or how about, what if on Monday you arranged all the screws and got the hardware together, and you made one sub-assembly on Monday, you put another sub-assembly together on Tuesday, and you got all the different sub-assemblies together first and put it together in that fashion. Okay? So sometimes structure you can even look at differently. In general, two ways of looking at problems: hard versus soft. Okay? Hard thinking versus soft thinking. Okay, think of these two opposite words and which one would be under which category. So, diverge and converge. Which one's hard? Diverge. Okay. Maybe I need to give you a better definition of hard and soft. Hard, I think, is more structured, and soft is more unstructured. So the soft one would probably be diverge, going outward, and the hard one would probably be converge, coming into a set point. How about expand or distill, as in distillation? How about innovative or evaluate? Flexible or judgmental? How many of you remember Gilligan's Island? Okay. Who was the soft thinker and who was the hard thinker?
Hard was the captain. I don't know what his name was.
Skipper.
Skipper, thank you. Soft was Gilligan.
Uh-huh. Gilligan was the outside the box kind of guy, right? Yeah. And the skipper always thought it had to be done a certain way. He'd always got to say, "Oh, Gilligan." He couldn't stop being judgmental about Gilligan. Yes.
This is super off topic, but did you ever see the movie Tommy? Did you ever see the movie Tommy Boy?
I think so.
With the two kids from the shore where they were yelling at the guys that
Well, if I haven't seen it, I'm going to go watch it now.
He's a bigger guy because he started it. They said, "Hey Gilligan, did you eat the skipper?" Sorry, it just flashed in my head.
Okay. Here's what an Oxford University professor said in 1878 about electricity. So this is a guy at like Harvard of England. Here's what he said about electricity. With regard to the electric light, much has been said for and against it, but I think I may say without contradiction that when the Paris exhibition closes, electric light will close with it, and no more will be heard of it. Okay, so a little judgmental on electric lights there. And you've heard various people from the U.S. Patent Office talk about, in fact, one guy, they even closed it in 1830 because they thought there were no more good inventions that were going to be patented. So we don't need a patent office anymore back in 1830. Okay. Now, one key technique that you're all familiar with is, what am I going to put here? Brainstorming. Right? What's that technique? What do you do when you brainstorm? A little louder?
We just spit out ideas.
Okay. Are you judgmental?
No.
Are you diverging, trying to come up with everything you can think about it? Okay. Are you trying to be like Gilligan and put all the strange things on the island together to make an invention to get off the island? Yeah, that's brainstorming. All right. Hard thinking is like a spotlight, very focused. Bright, clear, and intense, but it has a narrow beam. Soft thinking is more like a floodlight, lighting up the whole field. Soft focuses on similarities and connections. Hard focuses on differences. You want to use soft thinking in the imagination phase, and you want to use hard thinking in the evaluation phase. You don't want to use hard thinking in the middle of brainstorming. What's the worst thing that can happen? You're having a brainstorming session, and Thad comes up with an idea, and Anthony says, that's a stupid idea. How much is Thad going to want to say something, after that? So you want to withhold your evaluations when you're trying to come up with a big list of ideas. Wait for the judgments until you've gotten every possible idea out, and then your logical brain can kick in and start to see what will work and what won't. But when you're the initial imagination wild brainstorm, that's why they call it a storm. If you've ever looked, like yesterday, I was looking up as I was swimming, and one cool thing about Hawaii here right at the beach is you'll have the lower clouds going one way, and then some of the upper clouds will be going a different direction. Coming off the mountain that way, and then you'll have the trade winds at the lower level maybe bringing them into the shore. And so I thought that was really cool that I looked like, the clouds were clashing, coming together. So storm, a storm by definition is turbulent. It's all mixed up. You have, where we live in Utah, we call it horizontal snow. We live in a city called Highland, but we joke that we live in high wind instead of high land. Because when it's snowing, the snow is going sideways because the wind is pushing it sideways and it's not gently falling down gracefully. So think of soft thinking as like clay, where it's moldable, shapeable, and then hard thinking is when you put it into the kiln and you put it into a format where it will keep its shape forever, a lasting value. So soft is still moldable, hard is when you're going to get locked into what you want to do. Okay? Here's a little ditty, all right? Think of this in your mind. There's a man. The man is wearing a mask. There is a woman coming home. What is happening here? There is a man at home. The man is wearing a mask. There is a woman coming home. What's happening here? A thief is in the house.
It's Valentine's Day.
It's Valentine's Day.
It's Halloween.
Trick-or-treating.
Why is the husband wearing a mask?
He's dressed up as Cupid.
Oh,
He's a surprise friend.
okay.
He's the catcher.
The catcher for,
They're playing a baseball game.
okay.
He's on home plate.
Huh? Oh, the man is at home plate. Okay, what else? The thief, the Cupid, the baseball catcher, any others? Yes? Yes, he's wearing a clay mask. Okay, good. I tried that. My wife had bought this big thing of clay for a gazillion dollars, and I thought, well, I'm going to try it and see if it does anything. I paid a lot of money for this, so I tried it too. Yes?
He was in an accident, he has head trauma, and so he injures himself, so he has to wear protective gear.
Okay. Yeah, like that CPAP breathing mask. How about health? Think of more about health. You talked about that. What else could be the health problem here?
Anthrax or something like that
And so why is he wearing a mask?
to prevent from inhaling whatever.
Okay. So he's breathing. He has one of those breathing masks over him.
Read it again, please.
There is a man at home. The man is wearing a mask. There is a woman coming home. What is happening here?
Doesn't have a real answer.
Breathing apparatus.
If it's hard, yes, there is. But when we're in the soft stage, there is no answer. Breathing apparatus. Okay? Oxygen mask. Okay? Ooh, good point. We didn't say the woman is coming to his home. It just said the woman is coming home. Okay? All right, so we got like 7 or 8 different ideas just from that 15-word explanation there. Think of your perceptions. How did they radically change when JJ suggested that he's a catcher with a catcher's mask waiting at home plate. Very different than the thief that Tony talked about. All right. How about when you go to Costco and the parking lot is full? Is the problem that the parking lot isn't big enough, or is it there are too many cars? You know, what's the root of the problem there? You know, your perceptions create a lot of opportunities to see things different ways there. All right. I got a little visual aid here. All right. What can you do with this? What can you do with this? Okay. Vacuum. No, come on. We got to come up with 10 more.
Funnel for water.
Funnel.
Stencil.
Jet nozzle.
Turn into a shank.
You can dig with it. Shovel. Straw.
That's all possible.
Since your life is prison. Punch someone with it.
You could decorate a cake with it. You should toss it.
Pretend it's a sword when you're a little kid. 'Cause that's what I used to do.
Uh-huh. Okay, come on. I bet we can come up with 10 more. So you probably shouted out something I didn't hear you. So shout it out again.
You use it to fire spitballs at people.
Okay, so
More of an annoyance weapon than real weapon, projectiles.
Big nose.
what?
A big nose.
Use it as a kazoo. Use it. Makes a handy dandy building for Hot Wheels.
A what?
It's like a building.
Okay, so
Turn it on its side, it's like a tower or something. Like a million different uses for that as a toy.
Underwater breathing device.
come on, let's get 3 more.
You only said 10. Good. You can lock your
Hey, I changed. I was flexible. Let's go for 20. How many we got?
You use it as an instrument.
You just missed 2 more.
Instrument.
A pencil instead.
Instrument.
I can play it like a trumpet. Finger.
Okay, that's a kazoo.
Oh.
You can lock your window with it.
Lock or prop?
No, like make it so we can't open your window. A door stopper. Yeah.
And also it can use to hold up the window to keep it. You said pencil.
Yeah. Jam a pen or a pencil on the top of it, and if you need an extension.
Oh, okay, so just,
Come on now, think outside the box.
what?
The practicality of that.
How about use it like at Halloween for like Captain Hook, you know? Prosthetic.
Shine a laser through it, you get a pretty cool lighting effect for Halloween.
So it's a telescope, right?
Not what I was going for. I meant like if you bounced a laser off the inside, it would look really cool because it'd be like a green light coming out the slit. You have like a green light.
So you're calling it's a laser guide.
Or gun or whatever, yeah.
Okay.
It's
So how many do we have, Allie?
It's a eye thing. What is that? Telescope?
Yes. 24? All right, let's go for 30. Come on, 6 more. A knife?
It's really dull.
It's a hat.
A what? A hat. What?
It's your life straw from the.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Wait, but stop.
Like the water filter.
We got straw there.
Key.
A key.
Look at this. Doesn't it look like something would be like you find it in ancient ruins? You have to, push into a hole or something to open a door.
Okay.
It's a wedge.
Indiana Jones tool, huh?
If they had that on National Treasure, they wouldn't have needed that ship.
A wedge. Okay. What else besides that? A lever.
Shovel.
Use it with frosting.
Okay, so
Back scratcher. Yeah, put tape over one end for it.
So, yeah,
how many got, Ellie? Is anyone writing these down? Would someone write these down? No, we'll let Anthony do it, okay? He'll have it electronically for us. iPod design. What if you were an old guy in the 1800s? What could you use this for?
Hearing aid.
Okay, okay.
Or
Telephone, okay. Dagger, I'm going to put under here as weapon. Okay, how many we got?
You can use it as a handle for a lot of things.
Okay, handle. A cup, you know, you can, joystick.
shift breaks, you can pull
I'm going to leave that as an extension of various things, okay? This is a joystick or a gear shift extension.
Explosive device, you can play packet with a bunch of C4s.
Okay. Can we call it a container for various things, dynamite or Kool-Aid? What? What do you say?
Now we see you into terrorism.
I was just trying to give the song of lots of new ideas.
All right, how many we got?
You could put it in a tree to make a maple tunnel, or like, you know, when they do maple trees and the maple drip that.
Okay, so
Or breadfruit.
all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. All right, let's go for 50. Come on. Come on, 10 more. Yes?
They use, like in the old days, they use kind of stuff, smoky.
Oh, so a bomb, right? Is that all right? Huh? Or like a peace pipe? Okay, slash cigar holder, right?
You can melt it and use it to glue things.
All right.
Uses a filter.
Filter. All right, 54. 6 more.
Paintbrush. Also like a breathing, you know, if people do CPR, they have little plastic bags that like a CPR.
Yeah, it's like a tracheotomy or something, right? What do you call that?
You gotta let air in someone's lungs. You can do these.
Oh, so what do you? How would help me describe what that is then?
No, you know how like when your lungs are filling with fluid and they gotta drain them?
Oh, okay. So it's a stent. That's what they call it.
That's what it is.
A stent. Okay. Not quite sanitary, I don't think, huh? Yeah. All right, come on. 4 more.
Just stamp for like circle or something. Stamp.
Stamp it? Oh, yeah, you put a little ink on the end and it becomes a stamp.
A cookie cutter.
Cookie cutter.
You can use it to blow up balloons.
Oh, a rolling pin.
Okay, so more of an extension, right, for that? Or focus, yeah, let's put that with an extension and also a breathing device, right? What do we have, breathing device here someplace? Snorkel. Okay.
Maybe like a megaphone.
Megaphone.
You can melt it down.
Okay, we had meltdown. What else can you use it for when you melt down?
You could use all kinds of things. I mean, I don't know
Okay. How about when your kids are out of control? You know, a hammer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We did it. 50. What? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, here's your assignment for Thursday. Okay? What? Was that an easy one or a hard one?
No, I like that assignment.
What?
I enjoyed it.
Okay. Actually, one of you I read had a whole script for, you know, overcoming their objections, put it in the sales context of, you know, how you would get them to close the sale. Yeah. All right. You own a corner lot, and you have a beautiful new green lawn you've just put in. But you find the neighborhood kids are cutting across your lawn wearing a visible path across it. Okay, just like on college campuses, you see that. All right, come up with, and I'm going to only say 25, but those of you who want to be overachievers, you can go for higher numbers. Come up with 25 ways you could keep kids from cutting across the lawn. You cannot wound, maim, harm the kids, okay?
What about psychological harm?
Shh, don't give your ideas away yet, Max. God.
I guarantee if somebody cannot think beyond psychological harm, they're
Okay.
done.
You can't hurt them, but you can scare them.
Crazy as me.
You cannot give them bodily harm, okay? No bodily harm to the kids, okay? Okay. All right, so come up with 25 separate ways that you can keep the kids from cutting across your corner lawn, okay? All right. Here's some general parameters on brainstorming. In brainstorming, don't narrow your vision. Search all over your experience for ideas that relate to the problem. You may find an idea in literature, yesterday's breakfast, or in insects' mating habits. Connect ideas that don't seem to belong together, and they may inspire the perfect solution. Concentrate on quantity, not quality. A great scientist once said, the only way to get a good idea is to have lots of ideas. Produce as many ideas as possible. Then you'll have more from which to pick the best. It is easy after a brainstorming session to eliminate useless or ridiculous ideas, but it is extremely difficult to puff up a short list of ideas. Without quantity, you'll most likely not find the quality ideas either. I think you'll find that, you know, sometimes the last 10 ideas are a lot better than the first 10. You get rid of your trite, familiar responses on the first 10, and then you really start your divergent thinking near the end when you're pushing for the quota. The person who is capable of producing a large number of ideas per unit of time, other things being equal, has a greater chance of having a significant idea. Some person by J.P. Guilford said that. All right, keep it loose. Nothing can stop a good brainstorming session more thoroughly than a leader with a Napoleon complex. And last is best. The last half of a brainstorming session is often the best. It takes the first half to get all the usual responses and habitual solutions out of the way. Okay? All right. Next one, have you heard, maybe in golf, have you heard of the concept of mental practice? Not actually doing it tangibly, but just mentally practicing it in your mind. There was an experiment that was reported in Research Quarterly. They recruited a bunch of students and divided them into 3 groups. The first group was to practice throwing basketball free throws every day for 20 days. The second group wasn't to practice at all. The third group was to practice mentally only. Each group was scored on the first and the last days to measure their improvement, as the results speak for themselves. The first group, which practiced every day, improved by 24%. The second group, which didn't practice at all, didn't improve at all. The third group, which practiced mentally only, improved by 23%. So 1% short of the group who actually did the free throws. The researchers concluded that practicing mentally is virtually as effective as actual physical practice. Alex Morrison is a famous golf instructor who authored the book Better Golf Without Practice. His method is mental rehearsal rather than actual practice out on the golf course. He teaches his students the basic strokes, then instructs them to spend at least 5 minutes a day playing perfect golf in their imaginations. Through the process, they're able to improve their scores by 10 to 12 strokes without ever hitting a ball. Dr. John Eccles and Sir Charles Sheraton, experts in brain physiology, said, when you learn anything, a pattern of neurons forming a chain is set up in your brain tissue. This chain or electrical pattern is your brain's method of remembering. So since the subconscious cannot distinguish a real from an imagined experience, perfect mental practice can change or correct imperfect electrical patterns grooved there. So your subconscious can't tell whether it's actually being done or not. So when you do it in your mind alone, the brain's neurons set up an electrical pattern as if you were actually doing it physically. Albert Einstein thought in images more often than he thought in words. He solved the problem of relativity through mental imaging. Tycoon Henry Kaiser claimed that he mentally saw the outcome of every one of his business ventures long before he achieved them in the external world. So mental practice is something to think about. Come on, that was yeah. All right. All right. How about the powers of observation and asking questions as a key skill to creativity? Improving your powers of observation and asking questions. Okay.
It depends on how you use it, because it could be hindering if you...
How many hadn't realized Carla wasn't here? Okay. All right. You can bring your heads up unless you need a little bit longer nap. All right. Ask yourself, as you meet people here at BYU Hawaii that seem interesting, ask yourself to ask them a dozen questions. Who's had a basic journalism class? In your lead paragraph, you want to put down some of the basic facts: who, what, where, when, and why, the 5 W's. And then they often throw in the H, and how. So practice asking questions of people you meet. You know? Really important, you use that all the time on dates, right? Yeah, you get to know the other person by asking them questions. Have I told this story? Tell me if I've told this story before. In Old England, a really great lady went out on a date with 2 different guys, one after the other. The first night, she went out with some lord, and the next day her girlfriend said, well, how was your date? And she said, oh, he was the most fabulous man in all of England. And so, that was a pretty good date. The next night, she went out with another guy. And the next morning, her best friend asked her, well, how was this guy? And she said, oh, he made me think I was the greatest woman in all of England. So the first night, it was all about the guy. The second night, the guy was skilled at asking questions, and he found out all about her, and she talked about all about herself, and that made her feel good about herself. So very different focus of the 2 dates and the end result. So who's going to ask more questions of people around him? There's actually some books that people put out just asking, all they are questions in a book to ask other people. They've made money off of that by just putting interesting questions down that you can ask in groups or of other people. I mean, think of how you could get an interesting discussion going about, Joni, tell me about one of your worst dates. What was one of your worst dates? Or, I was watching a movie with my wife last night, and the guy was asking the girl, all right, tell me about your first kiss. That started the ball rolling on their whole conversation there. All right, so use more questions, improve your powers of observation. I mean, when we started to look at this, you came up with all sorts of other ways of looking at it rather than just a vacuum crevice tool. You came up with, 49 other things to do with that, just by looking and synthesizing. Another area is coming up, this is sort of a combination of the combination idea of putting two different things together, is trying to put things in metaphors and analogies. Think of how we do that in life, how metaphors and analogies are a really important part of our conversation. Here are just some that you'll remember when I tell them to you. The flow of time, the food chain, the nutrition pyramid, a leap of thought, a frame of reference, ethical bankruptcy, mental map, operational bottleneck, all those things that we come up with. The key to metaphorical thinking is similarity. In fact, this is how our thinking grows. We understand the unfamiliar by means of the familiar. And we come up with the similarities that seem comfortable and common to us. For example, what were the first automobiles called? No, that was a brand name.
Horseless buggies or carriages?
Horseless carriages. So everyone knew you got around in a carriage with a horse. So you describe the first automobile as a horseless carriage. How about the first locomotives?
Steam engine?
Now, a little farther back. Iron horse. Yeah. The horses are what really move fast. Their hooves cause sparks, just like the sparks coming off the wheels of the locomotives, and they're big metal things. So iron horses. It's fun to read Isaiah with this in mind, because you'll see how he saw our day, but he had to frame it through things he knew. He couldn't describe a jet airplane. He had no clue what a jet airplane was. So when he sees a jet airplane in his vision, how does he describe that in the scriptures?
Roars like a lion.
Yeah. Isn't that a good example? When you hear a jet airplane, the roar is something you can relate to. We refer to resemblances between things all the time. We say that hammers have heads, tables have legs, roads have shoulders, cities have hearts, and beds have feet and heads, bugs. It's all very soft, but that's how we think. I think this is really close to what we understand from the Holy Ghost and the role of the Spirit and revelation in our lives. A lot of people call it intuition that don't understand the role of the Spirit. Buckminster Fuller, he's developed the geodesic dome, that goes on top of a tank. A geodesic dome was his architectural creation. He believes in what he calls hunches. I call intuition cosmic fishing. You feel a nibble, then you've got to hook the fish. But most of us don't bother to pull the fish in. We shake it out of our heads. So, you know, you're out there fishing and you say, hold it, was that a fish? Did I feel a little tug on my line? You know, because when you feel this fish strike at the fly, you have to set the hook. So you have to be really sensitive to when you feel a little tug on the fishing line. Then you need to reel it in. And he says that's the same way with all these ideas we have, is the promptings, you know, will bounce off of you if you don't reach out for them and grab them and pull them into your life. And I think Neil Maxwell said it the best. He said, some of our best inspiration evaporates. You know, God lets it come down into your life, and we don't recognize it as revelation and act upon it, so it just evaporates and goes back up out of our life, and we don't get to use it in our life. All right, everyone stand up. Let's shake off a few of the sleepies here. Do we have a volunteer to be our exercise leader? No. All right, off the top of your head, what is one thing you're going to do more creatively when you leave this class today? What of some of the things we've talked about today are going to stick with you? What are you going to do better? April? Ask questions. Okay? That is so key in being a missionary. The people you talk to about the church, the old adage is, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And you show your caring and interest in them by asking them, oh, are those pictures of your grandkids there? Oh, you play the piano? Oh, you like, you know, John Denver, or you like the Beatles? You know, you see an album or a cover there, you know. You look at the pictures on their walls, you say, oh, have you been to Paris? You know, that's a way to connect with those people that you're trying to get them to let you talk about the gospel. You get them connecting with you by your similarities of things that you can ask them about. All right, you can sit down now. All right, what else are you going to remember? When you walk out this class, how are you going to be more creative?
Force yourself to make something out of nothing.
Make something out of nothing?
The little recipe things that cooking. Force yourself to make something.
Now, was it really make something out of nothing?
Okay, what you think is nothing.
Okay. You're going to organize things differently. Okay. Does she hand over here? Charles, what are you going to do differently? How are you going to be more creative?
Probably make more things sharp.
Judging from his comments today, he's going to make shanks out of more things.
Yeah, isn't that amazing how many things can be shanks if you know how to do it? Yeah.
It's hard time eventually. So.
Michael?
More mental practice.
More mental practice. Yeah. I've actually been trying that a bit. When I've been playing tennis, I've been trying to imagine the little grooves on the tennis ball, you know, where there's no fuzz. And I'm trying to imagine and look at those, and that forces me to keep my eye on the ball and bring it right to my racket. And I found when I'm keeping my eye on the ball, and I do that with golf too, I will pick out some little speck on the ball, and I will focus on that and keep my head down while I'm swinging through the, instead of looking out and say, oh, where did my great shot go? Oh, there it went. Yeah. Okay. Yes?
Only I will other things more surround me because I'm easy to get spaced out when I get nothing to do. So maybe I will try to ask myself observe things surround me to find some creative inspiration.
Okay. Be more observant.
Yeah.
Okay. You see when people change their hairstyle, right? I mean, isn't that a big frustration of spouses? When you've done something, changed something at the house, and you've spent all day doing it, and you come home and your spouse doesn't recognize that you did anything? Honey, isn't there something you want to tell me? Is there anything you noticed? Yeah. Yes?
Oh, I think another thing, like maybe accepting mistakes. I remember when I read the book, it says many inventions start from mistake, like Coca-Cola, it wasn't made for a drink, it was made for some certain medicine.
Yeah, Coca-Cola started out as a medicine, and now it's the biggest soft drink we have. All right. How is it okay to make mistakes when you're trying to be creative? Absolutely. Yeah, it's the worst thing you can do is start getting down on yourself by saying, I'm never going to solve this problem. You know, I give up. I mean, I like it. That's one reason I think I like baseball is you can be a superstar in baseball only hitting the ball 1 every 3 times. If you hit the ball 1 every 3 times and 2 out of 3 times you strike out, you are still going to be a superstar. Yeah. Now, if you do that in golf, you know, if you only hit the ball straight 1 out of every 3 times, you're in trouble. But baseball is good. Okay. It takes a lot of hard work. Edison said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Michelangelo said this, if people knew how hard I worked to get my mastery, it wouldn't seem so wonderful after all. And I don't know who said this, got cut off, I apologize, but they said, I know quite certainly that I myself, I think this might be Einstein. Einstein said, I know quite certainly that I myself have no special gift. Curiosity, obsession, and dogged endurance combined with self-critique have brought me my ideas. So, isn't that amazing? Einstein is saying, I have no special gift. Oh, yeah. You know, that's how we look at it. But he said he didn't think he had any special gift. It was his curiosity, obsession, and dogged endurance combined with self-critique that gave him his ideas. Alexander Hamilton, the first Treasury Secretary of the United States, said, men give me credit for some genius. All the genius I have lies in this. When I have a subject in hand, I study it profoundly. Profoundly. Day and night it is before me. My mind becomes pervaded with it. Then the effort which I have made is what people are pleased to call the fruit of genius. It is the fruit of labor and thought. Okay. Didn't we see an example of that in sections 8 and 9 of the Doctrine and Covenants? Where Oliver Cowdery, you know, he looked at how easily Joseph seemed to be translating the Book of Mormon plates. And Oliver thought, I can do this too. And then the Lord chastised him saying, you know, Oliver, you took no thought thinking that, you know, the translation would just pop into your mind without you doing any work. So he counseled Oliver to study it out in your mind first, put some hard work into it before you dismissed it. Here's one I cut out a few years ago when cards were big, you know, baseball cards, you know, sports cards. The city I lived in, Irvine, California, the police officers made up their own cards for the different police officers, and they would give them out to kids to try and build rapport with the kids. You know, it was something the kids were interested in. So the police said, hey, let's take a popular idea and combine it with our needs, and we'll do police cards instead of baseball cards. I think that's a good example of what you would call adapting. Take something that you know and adapt it to a new area. You know, like Max knows video games. Can Max take video game thinking and ways of doing things and apply it in other areas of his life? You know, can you break down the walls that separate different subjects? Successful creative solutions are often an extra modification or adaptation to an existing thing. And, I mean, those of you who went to the Great Ideas Forum and heard some of the great ideas, were any of those saying, wow, that is so new, I've never even thought about that. No one's ever come up with that idea before. Or were they just taking an idea and maybe putting it into what we need here at BYU Hawaii? Oh, they do that at Provo, can't we do that in Laie? You know, adapting things. Philip Reis, have you ever heard of this guy? R-E-I-S, invented the telephone before Alexander Graham Bell. But it would send only singing, not speaking. Bell came along and adapted it using continuous rather than interrupted current and drew the applause of the whole world. So I didn't know that. Some other guy had the telephone idea first, but it wasn't in the form that would become universally acceptable. So someone else came along and adapted the idea and changed our society. What?
You have a lot more musicians in the first one.
All right, how about what are some things to avoid? Number one, some people have the rigid habit of always having to be creative. You know, have you ever met someone that everything has to be creative? If it isn't new or different, they turn up their nose. Save the creativity effort for the important and let routine and habit control some of your more mundane life needs. Okay? So don't always have your creativity button on high. You just don't need it. Save your energy for the things that you really do need the creativity for. Number two, Charles Mingus was an American jazz pianist, and he said, creativity is more than just being different. Anybody can play weird. That's easy. What's hard is to be simple as Bach. Making the simple complicated is commonplace. Making the complicated simple, that is creativity. I liked how he said, anybody can play weird. I mean, if you're like me, I had piano lessons for maybe 6 months. So when I pass a piano, I'll just sort of, you know, plunk down, and it just sounds, you know, awful. I'm just being weird on the piano. So someone that can really master the piano and make it beautiful and simple is what really captures our attention. Pitfall number 3, creativity is more than just ideas. I think this was a big push of Brother Richie in the Great Ideas exchange. Yeah, he said, you know, ideas are a dime a dozen. I've heard him say that several times. Ideas by themselves are utterly useless. The value comes when you apply them. It's the results ideas bring that makes them valuable. Many of the people with ideas have the peculiar notion that their jobs are finished when they suggest them. That is up to somebody else to work out the dirty details and then implement the proposals. Since business is a get things done institution, creativity without action-oriented follow-through is a barren form of behavior. So, you know, 50 ideas for this, we did in what, 10 minutes? You know, you're going to probably get your 25 lawn ideas in what, maybe 25 minutes of thinking? You know, you'll get 10 in the first 3 minutes, and then it'll probably take, you know, 10 minutes for the last 5 to get your 25 total. What really will be the hard part is to implement any of those ideas, to apply those. So that's why in the Great Ideas Exchange, we didn't give out any prize money this month. You know, just coming up with an idea wasn't a big amount of effort. Now in March, where you take that idea and turn it into a plan and then compete, that's when we'll offer, I think they're offering up to $60,000 of money to help you take your plan and then apply it. So the ideas are cheap, the plan is more valuable, applying it is really where you make the big rewards. And you have to keep working at it. Here's an example from a book called The Incomplete Book of Failures. I like that, The Incomplete Book of Failures, because there's a lot of failures still to be completed. Has an entry about the world's most unsuccessful inventor. The man named Arthur Pedrick patented 162 inventions, and probably more since the book was written, and not one of them was ever produced commercially. So he had 162 patents, not one of them ever made him a dime.
What a waste of money.
Yeah. Do you guys remember, I can't remember right now, I've read it someplace, I don't know where it was. Dr. Seuss, what is Theodore Geisel, lived in, I don't know where he lived earlier, but he died in the San Diego area. But he took his first Dr. Seuss book to like 28 different publishers before he got someone to publish it. I mean, probably almost everyone in this room has read a Dr. Seuss book, and probably most of you have read dozens of them, and one or two of them you've probably had read to you 100 times. My favorite one was Hop on Pop. That was one I liked to read to my kids. So he's had a widespread impact on children's literature, and yet he did not stop when he got his first rejection. He knew he had something creative, a different way of looking at children's literature, and he didn't stop until he had it come through. Ideas are the easy part. Evaluation is tougher. Okay? Remember in my TED lecture a couple weeks ago at the Great Ideas, I talked about there's 3 steps in the life cycle of an idea, of a great idea. The first one is giving birth to the idea. That's step 1. The second one is discovering it and analyzing it. You know, sometimes you can have a great idea and not know you have a great idea. So it takes some discovery and then some analysis of it to see, oh yes, this is a mediocre idea versus this is a great idea. And then the third step is to take that idea and apply it and run with it and make it happen. Think about how you could get locked into, and this sort of, I hope no one takes offense at this, but think about church sacrament trays for the water. Okay? You could start to number the sacrament tray cup holders. You could fill the cups in numerical sequence and then have people take them out in reverse numerical order. You could have a laser device at the pulpit so it would measure exactly how high people are, and it would move automatically up and down to adjust to their height so you get the right level for the microphone. The deacons could be in charge of a bishop's snore sensor or a snooze sensor and give an electrical shock to the bishop when the deacons see that the bishop is sort of slumping down on the stand. How about, you know, you're confused, you see the numbers of the hymns at the front of the chapel, but you don't know maybe that's the last words and no one's updated them. Maybe you could have a neon flashing, now singing hymn, you know, 307. So everyone knew exactly what hymn we were singing. You know, there was no confusion about what hymn. Or how about, could you have volume sensors around the chapel so the chorister could pick up who wasn't singing and know exactly, oh, Joni, she's not singing very loudly. I can see her volume is not registering on the sensor. Okay. Aren't those all ideas we could put in, church use? Do any of them really make any sense? No. So you can come up with ideas, but you have to evaluate and get rid of the ones that don't make any sense. I'm amazed at how many gospel principles apply to creativity. That might be an interesting assignment. Maybe we'll save that for another day. But I would say that just keeping the commandments and the prophet's counsel helps us in our creative approach. We're up here already as Latter-day Saints in being creative versus other people have to start at this level and get up to here. And let me give you some examples of that. Journal keeping. Einstein, Edison, Da Vinci, they all kept extensive journals. I mean, think of, Da Vinci's notebooks, are just a gold mine of creative information. There were probably lots of other creative people we don't know about because they didn't keep a journal. They've come and died, and we didn't know they were ever very creative because they didn't keep a journal. I would suggest exercise. Having a fresh mind will help you be more creative. Good sleeping habits as outlined in the Doctrine and Covenants. Have you ever heard of a John Authority in his talk saying, I was staying up late at night and I had this idea come to me from the Holy Ghost? I've never heard that, but I've heard many of them say, I was up early with the sunrise, or I was up at dawn and I had this inspiration come to me. Dreams. Keep a pad of paper by your bed and write down when you get a flash of inspiration, or carry a notebook with you or a note card, or use your iPod or your PDA to write down when you get a flash of inspiration. Command your subconscious right before you go to sleep and see if you can force some ideas while you're sleeping through your dreams or through your subconscious. All right, Heavenly Father, I'm working on this problem for my physics class. I can't figure out how to put these things together. If it be thy will, during my sleep tonight, would you give me some guidance or some inspiration for this physics problem? And then be sure to write it down the next morning when you wake up instead of letting it evaporate. So maybe when you first wake up, don't open your eyes. Keep thinking about, all right, say, what did I dream about last night? And write that down before it slips away. How many times have you had a great thought and later on you say, oh, what was that thought? Oh, I was going to write that down. Okay, that happened to you, JJ? Yeah. All right, one last idea before we go. I call it PPP. Pray, ponder. What do you think the third P is? Oh, I'm sorry. The middle one is R. Pray, read, ponder. Okay? So this is a creative way of getting the best from the Holy Ghost in your life. If you pray for help, you start reading and doing some work, and then you spend some mental imaging time and just let the Holy Ghost put things in your mind, spirit to spirit. All right, I hope you're more creative today than you were yesterday. See you Thursday.